Nice to see you all tonight. Start with the pledge to the flag. Are you ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag.
The United States
States
of America
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
with liberty
indivisible,
and justice for all. Thank you. Remember to bring that over to camp with me. All right. What did you say, Ricky? I didn't hear.
Hold on, let me turn Rick. There we go, Rick.
Oh, I was just asking if he was going to mute us all before we did the Pledge of Allegiance again. I thought that worked well.
You can't hear Ricky pledging to some ungodly state. I can't find my packet.
Doesn't come out good. It's just a gurgle.
Got it. Sorry for the delay. I couldn't find my packet. And what's a selectman without his packet? Just select.
I'll make a motion. We open the board meeting.
Second?
Made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3. 2 absent. Do we know where Ernie and Melanie would be?
Ernie said that he's going to be joining us shortly. I have not heard from Melanie, but I have texted her.
Okay, she's probably working. All right. No new business night. First item of business, consideration of town ballot, the July 14th election. Town manager, you want to take that?
Or you want to
Sure.
consider it?
Sure. So I think maybe the first thing, and I mentioned this in my email the other day, that we may need to consider is sort of how we're going to frame this election. And I talked with MMA Legal, and they said we could do it one of 2 ways. We could post it as we would a town meeting with all of the items being on a secret ballot, or we could just post it as we would any other sort of referendum election. My thought is, and of course I'm not married to this, but that we should go ahead and just post it as a town meeting and keep that tradition alive, albeit in a way that's never been done before. I think it's what people might be used to, and it involves the election of a moderator, so that if there were any questions about what comes up, then Jay would be a resource for it.
Well, that's easy enough to handle. We just need to have, what is it, Jay? Give Jay his voice, will you?
Oh, yep. Sorry, Jay.
Jay, what does it just take 3 people to vote for you? Vote for the town moderator?
Yes, that's correct. Just 3.
We just designate 3 people to meet down in the town office, make the vote, and then skedaddle out of there. So that's not a problem. Hi, Melanie. Melanie's here. My feeling on this is that we should just hold the town meeting as we always have done, except it'll be online, and use the ballot, the warrant as originally written, and go with it there.
I like that idea. I think it's simpler to do that than trying to, it's a format that we're sort of all familiar with, except that not online.
Right.
You know?
Ricky, what do you think? Give Ricky his voice. Go ahead.
I think that's probably what we got to do. I don't think this stuff is going to go away tomorrow and for a long time. So I think we need it's the safest way we can.
Melanie, you have any thoughts?
So I missed the first part of it because I was having a heck of a time getting in.
Well, there are 2 suggestions made. One is that we hold the town meeting as we all, except that it'll be online, but it'll be a town meeting as always. And the second one was just take the warrant articles and make them into a referendum. We're familiar with the rules of a town meeting. Plus, this is what's been distributed already. So I guess what we're saying is 2 of us anyway so far feel we should go, 3 of us rather, should go with the town meeting format online.
So let me seek a point of clarification here. When I said town meeting, I was still anticipating that all of the warrant articles would be on the ballot.
Yes.
And
Right.
So
Yeah.
And when I say online, that's really what I meant. I didn't mean the
Okay.
conversation will be online. Go ahead, Melanie.
Okay, because I was like, Are we going to assume that everybody's going to join in town at the same time?
I'm sorry, I
I
couldn't
was trying to
understand.
figure out what we meant by, I was trying to figure out what we meant by online. But
Well-
you mean, as we had discussed on July 14th, doing all of the warrant articles as ballot items.
Yeah, that's right. They'd be ballot items, they'd be absentee ballot, they'd come down and either request that they be mailed to them, the voters, or come down to the town hall and pick them up. The hearing, which we'd have to have a hearing on everything. We could do a webinar or something. There are ways to work it out, so anybody who wanted to participate could participate. And that's what we're suggesting.
Okay,
Mr.
that
Chair-
makes sense to me.
Okay.
So Mr. Chair, it looks like, Jay, do you have your hand up?
Oh, yeah, I can take my hand down. I was just going to point out that there really won't be an opportunity for discussion other than the hearing that you would have
The hearing.
as part of the referendum. So there's really, that's what I just was confirming, that's what you meant by online
Yeah, that's what I'm
hearing.
thinking.
Yeah.
The actual vote will be a paper ballot.
Yeah. And like you said, Michael, we could call a very quick town meeting as long as there are 3 of us there to elect a moderator and then immediately adjourn the meeting, and then that would lead into the election.
We wouldn't adjourn it. Go ahead.
You wouldn't
Brett.
adjourn it.
Yeah.
What would you
just-
recess it or?
No.
Oh,
It
just
is
go
the
on.
meeting.
Oh, I see.
So it flows from the election of the moderator, the polls then open a few minutes later, and it continues just like it would on that Friday. There just won't be the Saturday gathering in person.
And so, Jay, would that necessitate us then adjourning the meeting when the polls close?
The meeting would end.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question, because we gotta have to collect the.
I would
Yeah.
think that we would have to have a 3-person vote to close the meeting at the end of voting.
We don't vote to close the meeting now, do we, Jay?
No,
We
no, you don't. When you get to the end of the agenda, that's the end of the meeting, because you can only on the floor you can only discuss items that are on the warrant.
That's right.
You know,
The
it's
only-
Right, but
The
we
vote-
do make a motion to adjourn,
nope, we do not.
which effectively closes the meeting.
The only time we've had a vote that I know of at the end of the meeting is when we vote to go to do an LD1.
Well, I think it would be worth just checking with MMA, because part of it is normally it's at the town meeting when we provide the results of the balloting. You know.
Well, and we are anticipating some guidance from the governor's office.
Yeah.
There was a webinar held last week for members of MMA, and the director of economic and community development for the state said they are working on some things to help guide towns in their town meetings. As you can imagine, a lot of July 1 fiscal year towns are approaching their town meeting season, and so apparently the governor's office is going to be offering some guidelines. So we may be guided by that to some extent as well.
All right, we ready to vote on this? Any other discussion? Any from the audience? Anybody have anything to say? Dan? Megan? Yes, Jack. Turn Jack on.
Yeah, well, there he is.
Go ahead, Jack.
Will, excuse me, will all of the balloting be by mail?
No.
No, they can come down and drop it off.
Yeah, so we did get some clarification from the Secretary of State's office about that question last week. And the Secretary of State's office says that a voter must request a ballot for it to be sent to them. And so obviously anyone who requests a ballot, we will mail it to them, or they can come down to the town office and pick it up and either, fill it out there, bring it back, or mail it to us at that point.
What will be the deadline for the return of those ballots to the town office?
Harold, do you want to weigh in on that?
Close
It
of the
will
polls.
be election day, July 14th.
Yeah, in other words, they have to have them down. They have to be in by the end of when the polls close,
Correct. Yep,
8 o'clock.
right. They can vote absentee, or they can come down and vote at the polls on July 14th.
I hear this voice coming out of nowhere. No pictures.
If they can come down and vote at the polls, How many articles are there on the ballot? How long is it going to take each person in the ballot booth?
Well, at the present, there are 55 articles on the ballot.
I think we ought to discourage them from voting right there and there because they're going to be in the town office a long time.
That's
Okay.
what I am getting at.
That's what you're
Are
getting
we
at?
gonna do it are we gonna do it at the town office or at the Center for All Seasons?
Center for All Seasons.
So election day would be at the Center for All Seasons, but if someone's filling out absentee, it would be at the town ballot, at the town office.
Gotcha.
Dan? Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, question. I missed last week's because I was out working. What's happening with the people that have already voted on half of the ballot?
Okay, so
Those
Dan,
ballots have been retained and they'll be thrown into the mix along with the new ballots. Is that right, Cheryl?
Correct.
So
Yes.
all of those will count. Now, what we're going to have to do is have two ballots. One will cover the material that was on the original absentee ballot, and one will be for the rest of the warrant articles. That way, if I, for instance, have voted already, so I would not get that original ballot because I've already voted. I would just get the latter one for the warrant articles.
All right, what I was thinking is I think you're going to have to go through and everybody that has voted, you're going to have to make sure they get a copy of that second ballot without them
Right.
No, that's not correct. Because it would be the same as if they were at the town meeting. There are people who vote on Friday that do not show up Saturday afternoon for the meeting.
Right.
And we can't, they still have to request the ballot. That's the rules from the Secretary of State. They have to make a request for an absentee ballot.
All right, so the other ballots that are going to be going out then, you're going to have two separate ballots then for everyone who hasn't voted then.
That's correct.
So it will actually, Dan, be the voter's choice. So if they have not previously voted absentee, they will have their choice of receiving either ballot or both ballots.
Okay, but it's going to be two separate ballots if you want.
Correct.
Yes.
You're not going to try to combine it into one ballot for some people.
Correct.
You couldn't tell who's voting for a second time that way.
Right. Well, that's why I was trying to figure it out because
Yeah.
tried to combine it. Then the people who originally voted for some reason just couldn't manage to get a hold of another ballot, didn't realize it or whatever. They could turn around and start calling and complaining that, well, I mean, I should have gotten both ballots.
Right. Did I see
Well,
another
it
hand?
does,
Go ahead, Mel.
well, it does sort of seem though, if somebody has requested an absentee ballot, that we should have some form of notification for those people that there is a second written ballot because we're not holding an in-person town meeting. So folks may not know to request a second one and assume because they requested one initially that because there's a second part that they would get one automatically.
So one possible solution to that, Melanie, is, and as you well know, there's still plans to try to do a town newsletter before the July 14th election. And, every resident in Belgrade gets a copy of that. So that would be a good time to just alert people that if you voted absentee and you want to vote on the other, 40 something articles, you've either got to request a ballot or you've got to come down to the Center for All Seasons on July 14th.
Yep. Okay.
Orders.
I also think that we need to use social media and all kinds of other communications in order to let people know, because some of those people that requested ballots may be out of town, and may not have the opportunity to pick up a newsletter. So whatever we can do in order to, spread the word far and wide. I was wondering this sort of a similar thing to what Melanie said, and that is that, Cheryl, do you have a list of all the people that voted absentee?
Yes, ma'am.
And approximately how many is that?
I don't know because I haven't looked at it recently.
Okay.
But I've got the list and I've got all the ballots, all the envelopes, everything's all in the safe.
I know of 3.
I just thinking that if there would be some way that we would just notify that group of people.
Yep, could do that.
If it wasn't too unwieldy or to kind of,
Anthony, what would it cost us to send postcards out?
What, to
Huh?
everybody in the town?
no,
Everybody who's on the voting list.
Oh, everyone who's on the voting list?
Yep.
Cheryl, do you know how many are on the voting list?
There's approximately 2350
Okay, 2,350.
at 21 cents a piece.
Could it be done? That's one way we'd know that people would get the notice.
Well, but I would argue that that's just duplicating what we would be doing with the newsletter.
Well,
And to answer Kathy's comment, yes, I mean, we will use the website and our social media, and we'll notify the local newspaper. By that point, you know, we'll also have summertime in the Belgrades up and rolling, and so hopefully Esther will help us get the word out through that. And so we'll use all the means that are at our disposal in order to, you know, alert people. And I suspect the turnout will be pretty high because, again, we're going to be combining this with 2 other elections.
they have to get absentees for everything, won't they?
Yes.
Yep. Jack, you have a hand up?
Yeah, when will the ballots be counted?
Cheryl?
At night.
That day. We
On
are
July
renting a-
14th.
Yeah, we're renting a second machine, so the town ballots will have one machine and the state ballots will have another. And the only thing that's going to be hand counted will be the school budget.
Daniel?
And how will the results be notified to the public?
That, I mean, we can put it on the website. I don't know how Anthony plans to get it out there. That's more his end of the world than what I do.
Yeah. So as soon as the ballots have been counted, Jack, we will put that on our website. We'll use our urgent alert there on our homepage, and then we will also use our social media. And then I assume, do you guys post the results around town, or?
We can post them in all the places where we post notices of election.
Yeah,
The post office, you know, all those kind of places, the stores.
Yeah.
Dan Newman, did
And
you
I
have
would-
anything? Excuse me, Melanie. Dan, did you have something to say?
Yeah, just again, it's last week I just couldn't kind of listen in because I was out of state. So I was just wondering, I mean, I assume that everything's staying the same for the warrant articles the way they were written,
right?
Yes.
correct? And you're still going to try, even though we're keeping the same, you're going to go to each department and try to keep the expenses down so you don't have to spend all of that money, correct?
Yes.
How are you letting the people know so they aren't going, how come you're still trying to spend all this money? Are you guys going to send out a letter? Send out a letter signed by the select board saying, we realize this budget was put forward before all of this happened. We're going to go to each department and try to reduce the budget so that we don't actually spend all of these funds. How are you going to let people know ahead of this so they aren't looking at this and going, all right, well, you got this increase compared to last year, and I don't really think it's right because of everything that's going on. So how are you going to let them know that you're going to try to keep the budget down even though the numbers are higher?
May I respond to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, Dan. So again, we'll use all of the tools that we have at our disposal. And so obviously the website, social media, you know, we could write a letter to the editor, I could, you know, craft a letter for the select board, write a letter to the editor of the local newspaper to help get it into the newspaper. You know, we could send out a letter. I'm not opposed to that at all. And of course, as I mentioned before, the newsletter, the communications committee is aiming to have a newsletter out prior to the July 14th election. And so,
Well,
as I've said before,
well, and we do have a select person's corner in the newsletter. So if the select board wants to craft something, we could put that forth, signed by the select board.
Yeah, I mean,
what we were going to do, Dan, is for the budget for next year, because when we were reviewing the warrant articles, some of them already say any unspent funds go to such and such a capital reserve. But if normally there's 5,000 that goes, and this year there's going to be 30,000, we've discussed having a mechanism in place at the beginning of the budget season next year that addresses that. And we pull those monies back out that weren't really supposed to go there and use them to offset taxes for next year.
Well,
So
what I'm kind of getting at is if you're going to send out something, I think they ought to send out something signed by the select board explaining what's going on. And also, you know, like in this budget, you've got raises for all the employees. Well, a lot of corporations had budgeted in raises, but they're turning around and pulling them back. So I don't know if you guys are going to cap and not have the raises for employees this year. You know, I don't know if the select board as the leadership of the town wants to turn around and say, you know, it's not a lot of money, but we'll forego the stipend that they get for the year, you know, just to let people know that they're trying to cut things in good faith.
Because that's one thing, the salaries we have not discussed, perhaps we will. But the other thing that occurs to me is that's one of the main reasons for having hearings before the election. And what we might do is encourage people, because it's routinely not attended well. Encourage people to come, let them know that we'll be discussing the things we'll be discussing, including what you just talked about, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, just little things, you know, to make people understand that yes, you're going to try to cut things.
Yeah. I think we could do that certainly at the hearing. There's nothing wrong with sending out a letter, putting a notice in the town newsletter, but frankly, we can figure that we can let Anthony go and figure some of this out, and let's let him know what he wants to do.
Well, you guys are jumping ahead of me a little bit, because at the end of this, I'm going to suggest that we have a series of 3 public hearings, all of them via Zoom, because we don't want any gatherings or anything, but in order to provide people with as much opportunity as they possibly can in order to plug in and engage in that conversation, Dan, I would suggest that we have, you know, a hearing at the end of May, in the middle of June, and again at the beginning of July, just to, again, give people every opportunity they can to engage in that discussion.
We need to make sure they understand the process this year too, which will be part of that hearing. In fact, I think Dan, you just alluded to that. Yes, Ricky.
I think I would like to do what you suggested, sending a postcard out. I think you could put that information on a postcard. Then you're sure it's kind of personal. It gets to the people to get to. One of the newsletter, you get it in the mail. Some people read it, some people don't.
Yeah.
Postcard, I think everybody's going to look at to see what the heck it is. I think way to go.
I think, yeah, I would like to see the postcard too, to tell you the truth. And, you know, we could put a lot of information on there. At least may not have to indicate every warrant article that we want to change, but let people know that come to the hearing because we'll be discussing those items.
Absolutely.
Come to the hearing because we'll be discussing the process. And it's going to be different this year. So it's come online and listen to what we have to say. But that way, at least we know every voter will know about it.
Absolutely.
All right,
I agree with all that. I also think that when we discussed it, that, you know, Gary had mentioned that there were mechanisms already in place for taking care of extra monies, and that we have the opportunity during the year to make decisions about how those funds get filtered back to taxpayers.
I think that's what Melanie was talking about.
Yes, that was all the stuff that we talked about. But my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mahler, but my understanding is that those mechanisms are already in place for various and sundry funds.
Well, it's reviewed. I mean, it's a standard process that we go through every year on the budget in reviewing that. And I think Jack was the one that brought that up, but I agree 100%. The mechanisms are there. Just have to use them.
Right.
We need to look at and give this, and I know, Anthony, you'll give this some thought, but just exactly what are we going to tell people on that postcard? I mean, are we, and I think the select board needs to discuss this a little further. We want to look at any of these warrant articles and adjust the amount of money or not? Just leave it the way it is?
Well,
We can discuss. We can
I'm
discuss.
hoping that because I outlined here in your background memo some things that I think that we need to consider tonight, whether or not we need, because of the circumstances, we need to adjust the amounts and potentially have the board, maybe the budget committee members who are here, and it looks like we have at least 4 of them here, to consider adjusting the amounts of the warrant articles.
All right, let's vote on select board. Let's vote on whether or not to use the item process 1, which was to have the town meeting using this warrant, perhaps modified, but using the warrant, the current warrant. Or
Now,
do we want to have a referendum, which was the second suggestion? I don't know the difference, to tell you the truth, between this is a referendum.
Well, because I thought what we had decided last week was that we were not going to alter
Right.
the amounts at all, because it's already gone out in the town report and people have that in writing.
Okay, but again, let's have the vote on whether or not we're going to do town meeting format or the referendum, and then I'll walk you through some of these things, and you guys can decide whether or not it makes sense or not to do this. But I think we need to just explore the options, because some things may skew the voter perception on what's on the article. So anyway, but
We could work on that mechanism next, but right now, the vote is, does somebody want to make a motion one way or the other? I will if nobody else does.
Explain what the difference is between the two again.
Number 1 was to have a town meeting on written ballot, hearings online, but following the town meeting format with a moderator and all the rules that pertain to town meetings. Process 2, suggestion 2, was to have a referendum, which should just be a vote, a paper vote. There would be wouldn't necessarily be a hearing. Well, it would be a hearing. You have to have a hearing for it. Anyway.
I'll make the motion, we go with option number 1.
Second? I'll second it. Motion's been made and seconded to go with option number 1, which is to have a town meeting using the existing warrant. Is that correct, Ricky?
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Kathy?
Yes.
Ricky?
Yes.
Ricky, 2. Who else is here? Ernie?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
That's 3. Melanie?
Yes.
4, and I, as chair, votes yes also. Okay, 5-0. Go with option 1. All right. What else? What did you want to say? Do you want to say anything now about process, or Ricky? Not Ricky. Yeah, Anthony.
well, and again, let me just walk through these articles. If you guys say nope, we're going to leave it as it is, then this will be a pretty quick discussion. But just going through the warrant, Article 9 was the one on the fireworks, and of course, we're not having a 4th of July celebration this year. And so I wondered if we should even include it on the ballot, or if we do, should we include a note that this year's events were canceled, and if the funds, if they are approved, they will not be issued.
But the other thing we can do is change the. Hang on, Jay. What do you want? What's Jay?
Well, I was just gonna say that's already on the secret ballot that has already been printed and gone out, which is part of the discussion we had last week.
Yeah,
So I think that, you know, my opinion is the postcard is a great idea. The expanded newsletter is a great opportunity to provide a lot more detail. But I thought you decided that you were gonna keep it the way it is, recognizing that there are a number of people who already have the town report in their hands, and to minimize the confusion of folks who see a ballot item that is different than that which was printed in the town report.
Okay.
I think that's what we ought to do, using the hearing mechanism to explain what problems we might have with the warrant, just as we would normally.
Okay, so there are 2 articles though that I think are problematic, and those are the contingency articles for recreation and for library. Those are Articles 53 and 54. And so those contingency articles, the way that they are on the ballot, approve the spending up through March 31st for both recreation and the library. Now, the vote's not happening until July 14th. So you're talking about the difference between about 33% of the year's budget versus 58% of the year's budget. And so if the voters approve, the amounts that are listed currently, if recreation and library budgets do not get approved, and voters approve the contingency articles for recreation and the library, then we will have already outspent what the figures that are in those contingency articles.
I don't think
Well,
you
we've
can do that.
Go ahead, Mel.
I think you gotta
Well,
leave it.
we've also, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Mel.
Well, we've also outspent what we asked the voters if the select board can spend a quarter of the budget.
Well,
So-
except that the emergency legislation gave us the authority to do that.
Oh.
Who had your hand? Jay had your hand up.
I didn't, but you're right, Mike, because the legislation said you can spend up to that which was authorized last year. So that would presume to be up to the full amount that was authorized last year. So I think you're okay. And quite frankly, I think if it turns out that Articles 3 and 4 pass, then Articles 53 and 54 simply would not be, they would be moot. They wouldn't be counted because it would have
As they have been every year. Dan,
Right.
what do you got, Dan?
Well, I think that even if you had the legislature hasn't changed it, I think you're going to be okay, because every year on this ballot, you vote to accept all overages. So
Yeah.
next year when you do it, if you accept it, you vote to accept an overage again.
Right. I think you're right. Ricky, did you have your hand up?
Well, I did. I think you gotta leave it alone. People have been voting this way for years. So if we go change this stuff, they're not gonna know what to do. I think you need to just leave it alone, go to what we got, see what happens.
All right. Well,
I agree with Rick on that.
Okay.
that's the simplest thing to do. So that's what we'll do then.
Well, you don't want to mess with it because then they'll just get confused.
It's gonna be confusing enough.
Yeah, agreed.
I think you just need to leave it alone and go with it.
Anybody on the select board disagree with that?
Nope.
Okay, good. That's what we're gonna do. We finished with that one? Okay, B. What?
No, one more thing. So do we want to tonight decide the dates of those public hearings on Zoom? Go ahead and set those dates? Or do you guys want to check calendars? I mean, my thought was we would have it on 3 different nights of the week. That way,
You have to, Cheryl, what is the timeline? How far ahead of the vote can we have these hearings? That may be the answer to your question.
if my memory serves correctly, as long as it's at least 10 days before the beginning of absentee voting.
I say absentee voting takes place 30 days before the election,
Well,
so
what-
that's June 14th.
Well, we barely hit the deadline on the first public hearing that we had. And Dan, you helped me with that. Wasn't it 10 days? It was 10 days before some benchmark. You recall what that
Yeah,
was?
I can't remember. You had to ask somebody, and I can't remember what it was. I know it was close.
I think
Yeah.
you're correct.
As far as the cutoff, again, the emergency legislation lets us go right to the 14th to accept absentee ballots. So that's the date I think we have to count back from.
I've got a question.
Yes.
If I could. The question's for Jay. Because we're doing this as a town meeting, couldn't you hold a public hearing even closer and call it the floor meeting of the town meeting? You're just not voting on it until the very end, and it's going to be done on secret ballot.
I don't know. I think it's, if you're going to do a series of 3, the odds are that you're going to have them scattered throughout that whole range. So I think you'll have the requirements covered. But
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you had one too close, if it really wouldn't matter, you could call it
I'm not sure that it would, because if you had to have one of record, you could have one that was 3 weeks out and one that was 2 days before. And if there was an issue, the one that was 3 weeks out would satisfy the requirement of having it at least 10 days before the ballot is cast.
So now, the more I think about it, Dan, I think it was 10 days. We had to have the hearing 10 days before the town meeting date. So the town meeting date was on March the 21st, and we had that hearing, if memory serves me correctly. On
Yeah,
March
it was
the 11th.
something close to that. Yeah.
Right.
So in this instance, as long as we had a hearing before July 4th, which
We
would
got
be
nothing
10
else to
days.
do. We have nothing else to do July 4th.
So
One of these public meetings, I would suggest that you do on a Saturday during the day.
Yeah.
That way you've got people that work nights or evenings that have a chance to be able to actually log on, and instead of doing all of them in the evening during the week.
I think that's a good idea. I think if we're going to have 3 meetings, just scatter them. Don't make them all the same. Don't make them all
Right.
Tuesday at 6:30 or whatever. That agreeable? Yeah. Anthony?
yeah, so I tell you what, why don't I come up with 3 dates, and I'll run it by you guys, and then you in fact, I'll do that at the next select board meeting on the 19th, a week from tonight, and then you guys can look at that and sign off on it.
Okay.
I
All
think
right.
So a
that's a
Saturday,
good idea.
Saturday one.
Wait, who's up? Melanie?
So as long as we have a quorum, because the Saturday one I wouldn't be able to participate in.
I might not either.
Well, we'll have a quorum. Kathy, Ernie, we ought to be able to get 3 people.
Right. I got nothing else to do. Right.
I look forward to these meetings. Actually, I get to see there are actually people alive out there. All right, we set on that then.
I do think a weekend is a good idea because
Yeah.
I think that there are people that cannot come during the week.
Yeah.
I think perhaps one during the early afternoon and then one after work. I don't know that, I don't really know. I just know that if you scatter them around, I think you've got to also scatter the hours a bit.
Well, I think if we have let Anthony work on this, but
Yes.
I think if we had one in the daytime, one in the evening, and one on a weekend, we'd cover the bases.
I
But
think you
Anthony,
would.
see what you come up with.
I think you would.
Yeah, okay. Ready to move on. We did have the vote. Yeah, we had the vote on the other thing. All right. Second item. Are you finished, Anthony? You have anything more or not?
I'm done, sir.
Consideration of the no-touch library services deal. This is back on because frankly, I was thinking about it and I asked to have it put back on. In thinking about the process that was outlined, it strikes me as being pretty safe. And I think I've heard from several people that find value in being able to have access to the library right now. They're running out of books. They're running out of things to do, and the library can be a comfort to a lot of people. It can be a comfort to me because my wife has been nagging me.
Oh, so we're responsible for that?
It's your fault that she's nagging me.
So that's a true reason why this is back on the agenda?
No, I'm joking about my wife. The reason,
Because I was going to ask the question.
Go ahead,
I
ask
just
the
don't
question.
understand why we couldn't wait till the next meeting like we agreed on. I'd like to see the town office go for a week before we open up something else. That's just my personal opinion.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think that what you outlined here seems perfectly safe to me. By the same token, I'd like to respect the fact that we already made a decision to wait until the next town meeting or the next select board meeting. I get a little crazy when we make one decision and then decide to change it. But, that's just me.
Anybody
Well,
else?
I don't want to overwhelm the neighbors driving neighbors because these folks are volunteering. They're using their gas to do these things. So I don't want to put more stuff on their plate necessarily.
if I if I may, the Neighbors Driving Neighbors has agreed. They asked to be part of the, handing out books. It's been asked to be part of what they do. So that's their choice. But I think I agree with what Rick said, that rather than put it on this agenda and try to move it up a week, let's just let the town office work its kinks out and then get the library on board maybe next week.
It's only another week.
Yeah. Let's just take our time with this. And,
Jay.
Well, so I sent an email to many of you, so you know what I'm going to say. But I think that, and I'm also one of the Neighbors Driving Neighbors volunteers. First of all, Neighbors Driving Neighbors is very quiet right now because most of what we do is take people from one appointment to another, and that's just not happening. So this is a wonderful way for the association to continue its activity, because we've got volunteers right now who want to do something who aren't able to because nobody has doctor's appointments and people aren't going shopping. The other thing is, I think that the plan that was presented last week is really a very good plan. And as I said in my email to the select board, there were just so many things that we cannot do. Every day we hear we can't do something new. That providing these little benefits to the townspeople, especially one that is as well thought out as the library plan, I think has a huge benefit. And I appreciate the fact that even though you did make a decision last week, that, as Michael said, that you've heard from other people, that you're willing to take that into consideration and say, you know what, on reflection, that was a well thought out plan. The town meeting, the town office for the first couple of days seems to be going well. Let's go with it. People aren't going into the library. They're going to be making arrangements to have books left on the deck. They're going to be putting the books in a box. So,
in truth, part of the reason I was able to find this to be agreeable was when I saw it written out and thought I could actually think about what was said. And I think the bases have been covered. It's even more protective than curbside pickup of days, which has worked out pretty well too. So,
Mr. Chair, it looks like Mr. Mahler would like to say something.
Yeah, he is. I didn't see his hand. Go ahead, Gary.
You have a zero human interaction in this process that they've outlined. To me, it's absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
It's a service the town can give to the citizens, and I'm just not sure why you want to wait on it. There just seems to be it's fail-safe. And those people that are sitting out there in their houses that like to read a book, gee whiz, give them a chance.
Megan, do you have anything to say?
All right. I capitulate.
Thank you.
Sorry, Ricky, but
Whatever.
Megan, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, to add to the Neighbors Driving Neighbors discussion, I have spoken with Mary Beth over at Neighbors Driving Neighbors, and we have put together a safety protocol for that delivery process as well. And we have drivers on standby ready to go. Staff is ready to go at the library. I'm ready to go. We're essentially all on standby whenever you guys are ready. And we're only having this conversation again just to let you guys know that. And it's out of no disrespect for the decision you made last week at all.
Yes, it is.
So if I may add just one other thing is, and I appreciate you guys, wanting to go slow, because I think that makes a lot of sense for us to move slowly on this to make sure we don't get too far over our skis. But as Megan just pointed out, we're not making any use of Megan or her staff at the town office right now. So, and there's only one person at the town office who would be involved in what's happening at the library, and that would be me. And I have a lot of confidence in me that I can monitor what's going on at the town office and at the library at the same time. And, it's not a hill that I want to fight on, much less die on, because we are talking about a week. But I do think that Jay and Gary both make a good point in that right now people are so cut off from the world that if we can bring a little measure of comfort to them by providing them something that they can read and enjoy, I think that's a public service in and of itself.
Well, Ricky, I love you to death. I really, really do, and I respect you and all, but I'm going to make a motion that we rescind our earlier action and allow the library to open under the plan as described, as written out, starting tomorrow.
In this memo, we're talking about in this memo, right?
In the memo, that's right, the no-touch library services memo.
Right, okay.
Yeah, they follow that process. And I move that we can go ahead and start it as soon as it's practical for the library to start doing it.
I'll second that.
I'll second that.
Made and seconded. Okay. Any other discussion? Kathy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rick?
No,
One no, one yes. Where's Ernie? Ernie, you keep moving these people around. I can't find them. Ernie, go ahead. How do you vote?
Yes.
Yes, that's one, two. And Melanie?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, that's 4-1. You may open the library as soon as you're able to get it going, Megan. Thank you very much. And Ricky?
God, what arm twisters? What arm?
I just remember that. You don't get something first time.
Ricky, we can't always agree. We just have to remember to respect each other.
It's just a process. You don't get it one time, you come back.
You'll get me another time. I know.
That's right. So be ready.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay, I'm sure you are.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
All right. Anything else?
Dinner time.
We're done, town manager?
Yes, sir.
All right. Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Made and seconded. All in favor? Just raise your hands. All the. Okay, everybody's in favor. Good. Thank you very much. We'll see you next Tuesday, right?
Right.
Amen.
Next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome to our
Thanks.
bubble.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye, y'all.